Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, y'all. This is second season of Food by the Game. This is going to be about an informer, a confidential informant that I was blessed enough to talk to. He wanted to give me his side of things, how he ended up in this. So I figured I could make this into something and really, teach some people about the game as far as how it really goes. A lot of people out there think that it's all peaches and cream. We know that it's not. Those of us that keep it 100 and real, we know that it's not peaches and cream. And this is what I want people to understand about this story. People say they won't do this and won't do that. Ha! Believe that if you want to. Tell yourself that if that's what you got to do to help yourself sleep at night. But you get caught in the right situation, the right circumstances, and here we go. Your mama ain't even say. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. We all know somebody that has gotten caught up like this. A lot of people we got people like this in our families. We know people like this in the streets. And I've always been interested in how a person gets caught up in something like this, right? And this guy is going to help shed light on that for me, for you. And I hope that you enjoy this. This is season 2 of Food by the Game, The Informer. Dear Joe, everybody calls me a rat. I understand why, but like everyone else, I have a story to tell. I didn't intend to be this type of person. Let me tell you how I became an informer. My life started out on the rough side of things, like a lot of people that get involved in the streets. I started out as a small-time drug dealer selling weed to people in high school that I was with. Graduated from selling weed to selling cocaine, and from cocaine to selling heroin. But as I was doing that, as the years went by and I neglected my education, I became more and more involved in the streets and everything that comes with that. And what a lot of people won't tell you is that snitching comes with the game. Now listen to what I'm trying to tell you. Snitching comes with the game. Nobody told me that when I first started. They told me that snitches get stitches. And I believed that then, and I somewhat believe that now. But I also have come to understand that if the snitches got the pack, then the snitches is cool. A lot of people don't want to tell you the raw part of it. But for me, I started selling drugs. I was making a lot of money. I was doing a lot of things, right? And I was making a lot of connections all over the city. Everybody knew what I was doing, even the police. So one day, I got pulled over. And the police, they told me, they warned me and said, look, when I catch you, I'm going to break you. And you're going to do what we want you to do. Or you're going to go to the penitentiary for the rest of your life. And like most people in the dope game, I was arrogant, shot him the bird, told him that you can go to hell with that. All the kind of things that you would say to somebody that you feel like disrespected you. Because I felt like the police was disrespecting me when they pulled up on me. What I didn't realize that they were warning me. They were letting me know we're close to getting you. And when we get you, we're going to twist you up into a pretzel and break you in half at our leisure. We're going to make you do things that you would never imagine that you would do. We're going to take everything from you, and then we're going to tell you how to live, how to act, what to say, what not to say, who to associate with, and you're going to like it. But I didn't take heed to that warning. Like most people in the streets, I was arrogant. So I kept selling drugs. I kept making my money. I kept making connections. I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point to where I thought I was untouchable. I thought that nobody could hurt me. Nobody can do any harm to me, not even the police, until that day that they caught me. And when they caught me and they took me in that back room and they told me just like this, you can go to jail tonight, or you can go home. But the ticket and the price to go home is you got to tell us who's supplying you. Now, at the time when they said that, I didn't even consider what they said. But they've been doing this a long time. So they read my body language. They looking at me. My lips was dry. Now, I'd never been arrested. This was my first time. Now, I've heard all the stories. I've seen all the shows. But I've never been in that box. And I'm telling you, when you get put in that box, Make a break time. Make a break time. But see, what we don't understand, people in the streets, what we don't understand, it's all about psychology. These people have been trained to read you. And on top of that, they've been trained to break you. But we don't understand that. We think we know more than they do. They sit down and go to school for this. They pay attention to everything, the eye twitching, the dry lips, the licking of the lips, the armpits sweating, the fidgeting in the seat, the moving around. You can't sit still. If you take a drink, if you don't take a drink, do you feel like eating or will you not eat? Will you take a cigarette or not take a cigarette? They pay attention to all of that because it all means something. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to fight or flight. Are you going to fight, buck this, stand firm on what it is that you believe, or are you going to run from it? And like most people, when ain't nobody looking, that's who you really are. And when ain't nobody looking and you feel threatened, you're going to do whatever you need to do to survive to the next day, to the next minute, to the next hour. Now go on and admit it. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. But this is how it goes. This is what they did to me. When he asked me, did I want to go home? I told him I did. But I don't want to do that. He said, well, we can work something out other than that. See, he lowered the bar on me. He lowered the threshold. See, at that point, he knew I was willing to do something, but not necessarily that. He said, well, just tell me a few people that you sell your stuff to. So I started rationalizing in my mind. I don't care nothing about the people that I sell my drugs to anyway. They ain't nothing but crackheads, junkies. That's all they are. See, I'm rationalizing. I'm trying to dehumanize them. See, I didn't realize it at the time, Joe. But I had to reevaluate what is going on in my mind because now I want to go home. I ain't telling on my plug, but I'm going to tell on the people that I sell drugs to. Just a few of them. Some of them I don't like anyway. I just like the money. So I gave them a couple of names. And I lied, of course, and told them these are my only 2 customers. They knew I was lying, but that's part of the game. This is the dance that you play. So I gave them a couple of names. They were cool with that. They let me go. So when I got in the parking lot, I got in my car, my heart was racing, about to jump out my chest. I had betrayed everything that I stood for. It didn't matter that these were people that bought from me. These were my customers. I had cooperated with the police. I had done the thing that you've been told to do in the streets that you don't do. The one thing that you don't do in the streets is cooperate with the police, and I did it. My stomach was hurting. I felt nauseous, like I wanted to throw up. But at the end of the day, I put the key in the ignition, and I drove home. And I slept in my own bed. And that night, I realized I'm not that dude. But I didn't stop selling dope, y'all. I kept hustling, getting my money. They didn't bother me. They didn't bother me. The 2 people that I told on, they got arrested. They were in jail because they caught them up, you know. Once I told them, they started watching them. I stopped selling to them, but they started watching them. They caught them coming from the house, coming from down the street, whatever, doing whatever, and they had some dope in their pocket. So they went to jail for possession. I told myself it'll help them anyway. They need to dry out. But they sat in jail. But you know what happened while they were in jail? Same thing happened to me. They told on somebody. They told on who they were buying it from. And that's how the game goes. And then when they got out after a few months, they were dry. They started working. Eventually they relapsed, got back on it. And by now, I'm lost again in my own arrogance and selfishness. And I looked at it like, well, they didn't tell on me last time. They might not tell on me now. They don't know that I turned on them. So I started selling them dope again. Big mistake. Big mistake. One of many that I continue to make. Because this time, when they came and bought dope from me, they had on a wipe. And they recorded me talking about selling them drugs. They recorded me talking about making moves. They basically recorded me bragging about what I was doing and how I was doing it. Just talking crazy. So this time, when the police pulled me over, they said, look here, follow us to the police department. I'm like, I'm not following y'all down there. The detective looked at me, he said, look here, I'm not playing with you. Follow me down here or I'm going to put you in the back seat and we're going to take you down there. What you want to do? So I said, man, I'll meet you down there. Now they pull off one way, I pull off the other. Now I'm sweating because this dude just punked me out. He let me know in his own way. We own you. We got you. And ain't nothing you can do about it. You're going to do what we tell you to do or you're going to jail. And they knew that's the one thing that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go to jail. So I drove down to the police department. When I got there, they directed me to this area where I had never been. It was just like a shed. In the back, nobody was there but them two and me. So they let me hear the recordings. I said, Now they said, look here. These are the two people you gave us months ago. And then you end up selling to them. Didn't you think that they would be working for us? I looked at them. I didn't know what to say. I was spooked. I was nervous. I didn't have a right to be mad, but I was. I said, man, these fools done told on me. Even though they didn't know I told on them first. But I was mad. I'm sitting down here. I think I was more mad at myself, but I got to blame that on somebody else. That's how we do. Blame it on somebody else. So I'm thinking, man, I'm going to do something to them. I'm really knowing I'm not. But there's, I'm playing my role in my mind. I'm not saying any of this out loud. I'm saying it's all in my head. I'm playing tricks on myself while I'm sitting there listening to the police pump me out. But really, they were showing me who I really was. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that I wasn't built like I had told myself I was built. I didn't want to believe that I wasn't built like everybody had looked at me and seen me. A lot of people look at me and they think I'm that dude. But these police were showing me that I'm not that dude. And I didn't know what to do other than get mad. And I didn't want to get mad at myself. I should have. They should have catapulted me and made me stop, but it didn't. So I'm going to get mad at the people that told on me, even though I told on them first now. Don't forget that part. But that's what goes on with your mind. Your mind plays tricks on you when you don't want to accept the truth. So check this out. This is what the detectives told me. They said, look here. We need you to do us a favor. Now keep in mind, they said it's a favor. I said, well, what do I get out of it? They said, we don't have to worry about this tape recording. Don't nobody know about this but us three. Don't nobody ever have to know about this. But this is what we need. We need to know who you getting that dope from. And they'll never know it's you. Now that's how they playing me. That confidentiality. Anonymity. That's how they get you, y'all. Because they know. As long as you believe, don't nobody know what you're doing, that you'll do it. So I leaned back in the chair, Joe, and I thought about what they were saying. And I started calculating what would happen if I gave up my source. That kills me. I'm done in the game if I give up my source. So I had to figure out something. Now my mind is working 1,000 miles a minute. Eyes moving back and forth like I'm a smoker. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? Here we go, y'all. I don't give up my source. But I give up somebody that does get down. I know he does. So the detectives, they look at me and say, you think we stupid? But we're going to play your game. We know that's not your source. We've been watching him. You ain't never bought from him. You kick it with him, but you ain't never bought from him. We want your source. But we're going to play your game. Since you gave him us, since you gave him to us, you're going to help us get him. And that's when I leaned back in the chair and I said, man, what do you mean by that? You want to play? We're going to play. You're going to help us get him. And that is how I became an informant, Joe. They pushed me into a corner where I couldn't get out of it. And I ended up having to do some things that I didn't want to do. And I did them. And I'll tell you about what happened in this next letter. It's getting a little late. I'm going to lay it on down. And I'll hit you back another time and let you know what I did in this situation. But I wanted to tell you something, man. I really need you to understand. I'm not a bad guy. I just did some stupid stuff. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Look here, y'all. I'm going to conclude this episode right here, right? And we're going to jump on to the next one. But this is the conclusion of the first episode of The Informer. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.